Hi, welcome to James Miller Lifeology, where you learn to simplify and transform your spirit, mind, and body. My name is James Miller. I'm a licensed psychotherapist and a composer. Thank you so much for joining with us today. Let's get started. I really wanted to take a quick second just to thank all of you who continually support and listen to James Miller Lifeology Radio. It has been such an exciting adventure for me. There are so many amazing things that are happening over here that I definitely want to share with you. So for the next few months, every person who signs up for my free newsletter will be entered into a drawing. In this monthly drawing, whomever wins will win a free 30-minute Skype call with me, James Miller. I will help you simplify and transform your spirit, mind, and body. So go to my website, jamesmillerlifeology.com, and sign up for my free newsletter there. Who knows, maybe you will be the lucky winner. So sign up today. I have a great show for you today. I'm going to help you analyze what type of leader you are. I'll also be interviewing author Sebastien RIchard, who shares his book, Lead Like a Superhero, What Pop Culture Icons Can Teach Us About Impactful Leadership. This amazing book uses popular superheroes as templates to train you how to be a powerful, effective leader. I have some exciting news. For those of you who listen to me on the radio, did you know that I'm on the air 3 times a week? You may hear me on the same station on Tuesdays at 1:30 p.m., Fridays at 9:30 a.m., and Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. Or you can listen to me on all the major podcasting platforms anytime you want, or simply visit jamesmillerlifeology.com, sign up for my free newsletter, and have the episodes emailed directly to you once a week. Young John was chatting to his mentor, Nathan, about his future career options. I think that I would be a great leader one day, John proudly announced. Okay, well, I think I could be a bullfrog one day, responded Nathan. Nathan often came up with seemingly absurd statements, and they continually frustrated and confused his young protege. Don't be ridiculous. I really think that I could be a leader one day. You could never be a bullfrog, though, retorted John. If you think you can be a leader, why can't I think I can be a bullfrog? Because you can't think your way to being a bullfrog. You either are or you aren't, responded John. You're right, John. And you can't think your way to being a leader either. You just have to be one, said Nathan with a smile. John thought for a few minutes, then asked, but I'm young. How can I be a leader? Leaders are leaders, no matter how old they are or what their circumstances are. You can positively influence your peers to make better decisions, find a cause worth bringing attention to, or work with others to find innovative solutions to challenging problems. Whatever you do, stop thinking about being a leader and just lead. What kind of leader are you? When we grew up, we read about many types of individuals who are very influential in the world around us. When we think about these individuals, we think, oh my gosh, I could never be like this person. We compare ourselves to these individuals, and we become frustrated because we think there's no way we could ever be like them. But did you realize that those leaders had to start somewhere? Think about your own life. You may have many wonderful hopes and dreams of things you want to do in the future. But the idea of how you're going to get there, how you're going to start your own company or own your own company can be very overwhelming. Think of a child. A child doesn't start to run. As we know, an infant just sits there. He learns how to roll over, crawl, walk, and then eventually run. It's the same type of thing when it comes to your leadership skills. Everything we do has to grow and develop. One of the most important things we can do right now is simply look at our life right this second. What are you doing to individuate yourself? In other words, what are you doing to just be you? Getting caught up in what your friends say, or what the latest trend is, or what social media says about you or doesn't say about you. What do you do to be true to yourself? When you can be true to yourself in every area of your life, in other words, being authentic and congruent, that is the beginning of being a really powerful leader. And when you're really aware of the type of person you are, and look at those potentially blind spots in your life. In other words, those areas in your life that you may not realize are potentially a problem until you do some deep self-introspection. But when you do recognize those blind spots, you change them. When you're talking to your friends or any social situation you're in, pay attention to how you present yourself. How do you think your peers see you? How do you think the people in the conversation or just even in that social setting see you? Do they see you as someone who's argumentative, who's always talking negatively about other people? Or do they see you as someone who's open to dialogue, who's open to discussion, who has their own opinions, but who's open to hearing what others have to say? There's so many amazing traits of a leader, and that's why my guest today, Sebastien RIchard, is going to be sharing his book, Lead Like a Superhero. It's a phenomenal book that really gives you insight and wisdom of how you can be a better leader, what a leader is, and how you can develop your own leadership style. But I really want us to take something very practical today, is simply pay attention to who you are in the conversations you have, in the interactions you have. Do you find that you leave each of those situations making it better, making it healthier, making people smile, making people laugh, giving compassion to those people around you? The more you can practice that, the more easily it will be to be an effective leader. Many people can lead people astray, but the type of leader who can support your friend, support the people around you, is a type of leader that people will automatically be drawn to. Be an effective leader today. Did you know that I have a YouTube channel? That's actually how Lifeology started. I have well over 150 episodes that I've created specifically for you. I do know many people struggle with listening to a full 30-minute show, so these YouTube episodes are about 3 minutes long. Each episode teaches you one simple lesson that you can practice daily, which will help you simplify and transform your spirit, mind, and body. Simply go to my website, jamesmillerlifeology.com, and subscribe to my YouTube channel there, or go to youtube.com and search for my name, James Miller Lifeology. Sebastien RIchard is a Montreal-born speaker, leadership trainer, and co-founder with his wife of a faith-based leadership and coaching company called Thriving on Purpose. He is also the author of Lead Like a Superhero, What Pop Culture Icons Can Teach Us About Impactful Leadership. Lead Like a Superhero is an unconventional approach to leadership, perfectly tailored for a younger generation of leaders. It is informative, fun, and inspiring new way to learn about leadership. Welcome to my show, Sebastien.
Hey, thanks, James. It's nice to be here.
Yes, you are calling from Prince Edward Island?
Yes, I am.
Well, thank you for joining with us today. I'm down here in sunny Florida, and you are up north. And that's a great thing I love about technology is the world is not as big as it used to be.
No, it sure isn't. It's a small world and getting smaller every day.
Yes, it is. So once again, thank you for joining with us today. I can't wait to talk about your book, Lead Like a Superhero. That's going to be a wonderful conversation, and I'm really looking forward to getting your take on what it means to be a leader, specifically with this younger generation.
All right.
Well, let's talk a little bit about you yourself. So you were born in Montreal and you grew up there, but it sounds, from what I understand, the way you grew up, it was not the quote unquote optimal version of how a child should grow up. It sounds like you didn't have many leaders yourself. So would you be willing to tell us how you grew up?
Yeah, well, I grew up in the poorer neighborhoods of Montreal. My parents were not stable people.
Mm-hmm.
They moved around a lot. They divorced actually twice. So they divorced when I was 2, after which I went to live with my mom and then my dad and then my grandparents. And then I was shipped to boarding school. So it wasn't an easy childhood as I was bumped around quite a bit. And then they remarried when I was around 9 years old. After which they had a super bumpy marriage for another 4 years, and they re-divorced when I was around 14 years old.
Oh my gosh.
And that one was really crushing. Like even if we weren't living the high life when they were together, they were still together. And, and a child growing up, it's always good to have his parents together.
Yeah, that's what a child usually always wants, is to have that. So I'm sure when you're 9 years old, it was wonderful. And then unfortunately at 14, I can see why that would be so difficult for you.
Yeah, it was tough. And so a lot of instability growing up. I did, at the age of 16, I had already done 11 schools.
Oh, my gosh.
So I was always the new kid, pretty much. That made me more shy and reserved, I guess, and sometimes bullied. So it was a tough childhood, tough growing up. And the thing that was lacking the most in my growing up years was a good, sound leadership. And usually the place we get it first is from our parents. And my parents didn't really offer that. My mom was too busy just trying to survive. And my father was not the leadership type. He was very irresponsible, and he was not the type of man. He was not mean with us, but he was just not someone who held down a job and he did
the role model you wanted, of course.
Especially needed, yeah.
Sure, yes, exactly. Yeah, that's a better way to say it.
So those were tough years.
So when you were growing up, who were the people that were leaders in your life?
Yeah, so that's the interesting part. I found that we always pursue what we lack. And we do that oftentimes unconsciously. I mean, for example, if you look at in relationships, a man will be drawn to a woman because she has certain attributes that he doesn't have.
Sure.
And it goes also for, if you look at those who've studied psychology, oftentimes those who've studied psychology, well, either they suffered from mental illness or someone in their surroundings or close family or friends suffered with mental illness. So that drew them to the profession. And it's on in so many other spheres. And I find it's the same thing with leadership. If we severely lack leadership, it can be a path to pursuing it with a lot of effort. And that's exactly what happened to me. Actually, there were 2 lanes. There was also the fact that my parents divorced twice. So as a result, I really wanted to succeed at my marriage. So I started reading all kinds of books on how to be a good husband, women's psychology, how to have a marriage, and on and on. That was one thing. but leadership was maybe a little bit more late in coming, but it was still a lack in my life. So what happened growing up is, since my dad was not that great leader, I started looking to leaders in my church. I was still a churchgoer, and there were some good men there that had strong, solid families, and they had good values, and they exercised their leadership on a daily basis.
Sure.
So for me,
consistency.
Very consistent, and for me that was great inspiration. And I looked at these guys, but also on another lane, growing up in my teens, I really liked reading comic books.
I think we all did. Yeah, I can definitely attest to that as well.
Because you don't really know, right? Like, you're drawn to comic books, you love comic books, but you don't really realize what you're gaining from reading it. I mean, you're entertained for sure, but there's also a void that gets filled through reading comic books. I mean,
it's very fantastical, of course.
I got some great leadership principles from Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, Captain America, and I didn't know at the time that that's what was being filled, or basically that's what I felt. Let's just boil it down that way.
Sure. That definitely makes sense. I wanted to ask you, though, just so my listeners understand the specifics of this, what is your idea of a leader? And so therefore, we're all on the same page as we kind of discuss this.
Yeah. See, when I first started my John Maxwell training, I learned a great deal of principles about what good leaders are and what the good leadership principles are and all that. But I've realized as I've grown into my own leadership skill and in my own leaps and bounds in my knowledge and application, that in order to be a good leader, first, you need to lead your own life. And a lot of people fail at that. And a lot of people actually absolutely need that.
Yeah. So not only lead it, but so to manage it and develop it. I think sometimes a leader, they think, oh, the person just makes a decision, but it's also the developments, the nurturing aspect. So I think there's so many things that go along with being a leader, because you can teach someone the direction to go, but if you don't help them grow and develop into their own person, then all you're doing is just moving them along. You're really not training them. So I think there are so many factors that go along with what a leader is, or a healthy leader is.
Absolutely. You're absolutely spot on. And I was listening to Miles Monroe a while back, and he was explaining that we often have the erroneous idea that in order to be a leader, we need followers. That's partly true, of course. I mean, leaders have followers, but sometimes you are a leader, but you just don't have the followers yet, because you are actually invested in your own personal growth. You are actually leading your life. You're implementing every day. So that makes you a leader, but you just don't have those followers yet. So I think the distinction that we need to make.
Sure. And if I can take it back, take a little bit further with that as well, is we're all leaders, even when it comes to the conversations that we have. So we may not be specifically in a leadership role, but for example, you and I are talking, you're saying something, which is leading me to say something in return. And the emotional output we have in any interaction, or the word choices we use, or what we choose to say or what we choose not to say, really can lead a conversation or lead a situation in the direction we want to go. So we may not be the quote unquote leader as far as a title, but we are able to move anything, any conversation or any social situation that we're in the direction we want to go based off what we do or don't say.
Absolutely. And we are basically, when we're having a conversation like we are now, we're influencing one another. So basically, leadership is influence.
Yes. Exactly. Well, I really want to jump into talking about your book as well. So you were saying that when you were a child, you were reading about all these superheroes and all these comic books, and you really perhaps didn't realize that that's what you were looking for as far as the leadership components of that. How did this book actually come about?
Yeah, that's a funny story. I mean, as I was undergoing my training and developing as a leader myself, and I was immersing myself in leadership. Okay, I was listening to hours of leadership content every day. And so what happens when you immerse yourself in a certain thing, you start seeing it everywhere, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's true.
Left, right, it's there. So I just had a random thought, and I just thought, because I am a fan of superheroes, I was just thinking about Superman and Batman. I was like, oh, these guys are great leaders. And then it clicked, and then I started writing on a piece of paper that I found right next to me. I started writing down, I think there were 10 at the time, 10 superheroes. And next to their names, I wrote how they lead, because they don't lead the same way. And when I was done, it took me 5 minutes to write that because I was really like on a, when you have that great idea,
Yes.
you're like really excited to write it down. Well, I was in that kind of mode, and I was in a full blown inspirational mode. When I was finished writing that, I reread it and I was like, oh my God, I have a book.
That's amazing. And that's really how it works. It really is. That's amazing. Yeah. And when did you actually write this book? Because there's been so many superhero movies that are coming out. In fact, Wonder Woman is coming out soon as well down here in the United States. So when did you actually think about all this?
That was about a year and a half ago.
Oh, this is perfect. So it's very, very relevant. And so it's very true, obviously, for all of the people who watch movies. I mean, so it's really neat that you've taken an amazing concept, a powerful concept rather, and you've linked it together with the world around us today.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, I was talking about when I was younger, and something I've noticed also is when you're in high school, those who will buy comic books usually, and I'm putting it generally here, they're not the jocks. The jocks will not go buy comic books, and the popular girls will not go buy comic books. Oftentimes, as people are a bit more low key, who are not popular in high school, who are struggling with their relationships and have a hard time fitting in. Why do they do that? Well, I realized one thing. The reason I did it is because I needed to feel empowered.
Yeah. And give yourself direction too, and also give yourself a voice too, because unfortunately in society, a lot of times they think the more attractive people, the more popular people, the more athletic people are the true leaders. And then the people who may not be in the forefront, they're often left behind, or they're often thought about or looked at as if they can't do something because society has this myopic viewpoint, or in other words, it has this frame of mind that only certain people can actually do that. And so it is neat to hear that you really targeted those people who have maybe not yet been able to find their voice, but they have just as much potential to be a powerful leader as anybody else.
Exactly. And that's why I think the book will appeal mostly to a younger generation of leaders. And you won't have probably a 60-year-old guy buying that book. I mean, I have the odd one here and there, but it won't be their thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was going to ask you, so what age group would you say specifically this book is written for?
I would think, because the book has a wide audience, it's not just superheroes and it's not just leadership.
Okay.
But obviously it's going to appeal to both. So I would think between 15 and 40 years old is probably the target group. And some people will already be leaders because obviously the principles are very well explained there. It's not a John Maxwell book per se, as in the sense that the very buttoned down kind of serious approach to leadership. So it's got this lens of superheroes and pop culture, which makes it more young and hip. But it's still going to appeal to those who are already in leadership positions. And obviously the comic book fans, those who love the comic books and who are looking into maybe developing their lives, becoming better leaders themselves, and growing into a more responsible life, they will definitely love this book.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really neat. I was actually reading some of the reviews that you had on Amazon, and it was pretty encouraging. So I'm really looking forward to helping you promote this book as well. Can you give us an example of, of course, I don't want you to say too much about the book because I want them to buy it, but can you give us an example of maybe one of the superheroes or one of the people in pop culture that how they demonstrate their form of leadership?
Yeah, well, see, I can take it from the table of contents.
Sure.
For example, chapter 3 is about the Superman type leader. So basically, it's based on the character of Superman, and I give a lot of comic book references and movie references in it. And Superman is called the leader who forges ahead like a locomotive. And if you take the Batman in chapter 5, the Batman leader, he's the leader who leads from the back, analyzing. And that's what Batman does. He always thinks things through and analyzes every possible outcome, and just a super brain at work, and then he implements with absolute certainty and style, right? And there's obviously the Captain America, who is the brilliant unifier and strategist. Captain America has an ability to gather people to form a cohesive unit. So that makes him a great, great leader. But he's also at the same time a great strategist, and he's going to have these strategies, and he knows how to turn on a dime when the situation gets out of hand. He knows just what to do next, or he's got a plan B, C, and D. He's got you covered, right?
Yeah, very flexible in his leadership style.
And you spoke about Wonder Woman earlier, the
Uh-huh.
movie coming. Well, there's a Wonder Woman chapter, which is called the strong and versatile female lead. So
Mm.
there's some goodies for everybody in that book.
Yes, yes, it definitely, definitely sounds like that. Yes. When you look back and you read this book yourself, how have you found that just even writing this book has helped you become even a better leader?
Yeah, that's been a process, and it's
Mm-hmm.
still ongoing to this day. There's a lot of things I told you right now in this interview that are things that I realized after the book was written, which is kind of odd, and I didn't expect that. Because when you're into it, when you're inspired and you're just writing it down and you're passionate and you're researching and writing, that's you're in a certain mode. But once the book is out, once it's done, and you go back to it and you relook at the pages and you reread it, you see things differently, and you kind of go inward and try to figure out, what did I write it like this?
Mm.
What was I trying to accomplish? What was I trying to get? And basically, that's what I realized by going, I guess, introverting myself.
Sure. Uh-huh.
I
Introspection. Yeah.
realized basically I was talking to a younger version of myself.
Wow.
You know, that guy who was actually needing leadership growing up, that guy who actually wanted to have more in life, to be more in life, that guy who knew he had something in him, but who didn't know how to express it. Well, that's the guy I wrote the book to without really knowing it. So today I'm realizing, okay, you know what? I wrote this really for a younger generation of leaders, for those people who either are good leaders and you just want to have a good read that talks about leadership, that's entertaining at the same time, but also for those who are just trying to get into that mode, or trying to become the person they know they can.
That's amazing. Well, just even as you were saying that now, I could tell just you were just still having that introspective thought about how this still makes sense for you. So I agree with you 100%. Not only do you have the awareness now of what it means, but also in the future as you go back and read this. You know, I know for me, if the different things that I've done as well, either on the radio or on YouTube, and I'll go back and listen to it, and I listen to it as a student, or listen to it as how my listeners hear it. I'm like, oh, that's really good. I should probably really practice that. I mean, even though I do practice it, but you don't realize how much learning you get on the back end as you listen to it, as you read it, as you review it. Because just because you know something doesn't mean you can't learn it in a different facet, or continually have it be developed as you ruminate or think about it in the background. So it's so neat to hear on this side, as I'm hearing you talk about it, that you are continually learning. You are becoming a better leader, a stronger leader, a more advanced leader in your own life.
Absolutely, and I love how you put it. That's so true. I mean, it reminds me of something a teacher once said. He said, "We always teach best what we most need to learn."
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, and that's incredibly true. And like I said, you know, it is interesting when I hear some of those things. I'm like, oh gosh, apparently that's what I was going through. And I didn't realize it, but now I can teach it to to my followers as well. So it is really neat how we can definitely use our own real life experiences and help change the world around us.
Hey, I'm curious.
Sure.
What about you and superheroes? Is there a superhero you prefer? Is there one that you admire, that you like, that you would like to be like?
That's a great question. You know, one of my interns from years ago, they actually bought me a book on the psychology of superheroes and villains and how they kind of manifested and all that. And it was a brilliant book, and unfortunately I don't have it with me anymore. But you know, the one that always spoke to me was Superman. You know, Superman was always the one, the kind of the straight and narrow. I don't want to say like a Boy Scout, but as far as he was always knew right from wrong, always followed that right path. And I always found for me that was the one that I always wanted to be like. You know, he was very compassionate. He was very caring. And his morals and ethics were very sound. And so out of all the superheroes, he was probably the one that I've always aligned myself with. I haven't necessarily thought about it on his leadership style, but when it comes to all of the superheroes that I grew up with, he was always my favorite one, the one I was always drawn to.
That's like, I love getting it from you. I love getting
No,
stuff.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I grew up with all those. You know, for me, I do more Marvel comics as opposed to DC comics. Not that they're any better or worse, but out of all of them, Superman has always been the one that's just resonated with me from as a little boy. So, so it is really neat to hear
Yeah,
you
resonates
talk
with
about
a lot
that.
of people, Superman, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, and he's had so many movies too, just like Batman. You know, so it was interesting when you see the two of them together in that latest movie that came out here, just to kind of see their strengths and struggles that they had. But Yeah.
Very different characters, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely true. Well, Sebastian, it has been an amazing time speaking with you. I can't wait for my listeners to go out and buy your book, Lead Like a Superhero, What a Pop Culture Icons Can Teach Us About Impactful Leadership. Where would they find this information online, and where would they be able to purchase the books as well?
They can purchase the book anywhere online. Obviously, Amazon.com is probably the best place, but there's so many other companies out there. You can find it. They have it online. So Books A Million, Barnes and Nobles, and all these other good places. So, but definitely you can find it on Amazon for sure. Yeah.
Excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm also put it on my storefront, jamesmillerlifeology.com. And if my listeners aren't able to find it on Amazon, simply go to my website. Once again, jamesmillerlifeology.com. Go to the storefront and you will see the book there, Lead Like a Superhero. So if they want to find out any information about you and your website, do you have a specific website you'd like to direct them to?
So right now the website is undergoing some renovations, I guess you could say. It is thrivingonpurpose.com, but you can find me on Facebook. We have a Facebook page called Thriving Purpose, yes, on Facebook. And you can just find me also at author Sebastien RIchard. Sebastien is written at the French-Canadian style, so is Bastien at the end. So it's not the Tian, which is usually the way we write it in English. So it's written in French, Stien, Sebastien RIchard. So author Sebastien RIchard.
Excellent. Well, once again, Sebastian, thank you so much for being a guest on my show today. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Hey, thanks a lot. It was great. Thanks for having me.
I also want to thank you, my listener, for joining with me today. Please subscribe to this radio show through whichever portal you joined with me. Also, please go to my website where you may sign up for my newsletter, enroll in the Lifeology Academy, watch my YouTube episodes, and read all the articles I've written just for you. If you'd like to become a guest or advertise on my show, simply visit jamesmillerlifeology.com. You may also follow me on all social media platforms under the name James Miller Lifeology, except for Twitter, which is James M. Lifeology. Have a fantastic day, and I look